Avengers, assemble. This video is sponsored by our YouTube membership program. If you're interested in sponsoring a video and becoming a YouTube member, you can check out a link in the description below and support the channel with one tier, all access for $2.99 a month. Now, as the title spoils, this is our look into the Winter Soldier character and his data mine. And I want to, as always, thank Emily immensely for her help and support in putting this together. I really do appreciate it. So, right off the bat, as a little bit of a preface, if you're joining in or jumping in for the first time, we do have a playlist on data mines that is accessible and will be linked toward the end of this video. In addition to that, as I always want to point out, data mines are not definitive. They are not set in stone. This is not a sign that everything in a data mine will certainly happen. You know, that's not the case. If it's in a data mine, that doesn't mean it's definitely going to be there. It could be abandoned concepts. It could be abandoned characters. On top of that, the game actually has to survive to get to this point and to reach these characters to be that accessible. That's just it. That's where we're coming from in terms of a data mine. It's just raw information. There is nothing that we can glean from the minds of the developers in terms of that, which is also to say, in a larger context, and I say this, and this will be as a broken record, but I always want to make sure, because there's always a comment that asks this: when is it coming? When is the character that you've data mined coming? Data mines don't work that way. There's not dates in the code. There is no there's no fine print that says this, make sure to launch this character by this day. It doesn't work that way. So I always try to get these prefaces out of the way, at the top of the video, so that if you're just coming in, if you're new, if you're not exactly sure how it works, I want to get that out of the way. I want to explain that to you. So I hope that's been helpful. I hope it's been slightly informative. And now, real quick, I want to preface one more thing, and that is the Avengers, the Extinction Key novel by author Greg Keyes, and it was the official prequel to the blockbuster action video game. Again, I'm being a little facetious. I apologize. The book wasn't exactly a seller. I don't think anybody read it, and not many anyway. But the book did make allusions to several Marvel characters, and for this particular video, I thought this was relevant. In it, it notes, or at least it makes the allusion, it makes the reference that the last time Steve Rogers, right prior to the game, the last time Steve Rogers saw Bucky Barnes was before he fell into the ice, 70, 80 years ago. So that's an important point, because that means in terms of the game's canon, Bucky Barnes has not, reappeared and confronted Steve Rogers, which leads me to the possibility that, again, if done right and if done well, the game could initially introduce Bucky Barnes maybe as just, an NPC, just as someone that appears, some kind of ominous villain, and then go right into being able to play as him. Or, just for diversifying my options, and this one probably makes the most sense, you play as him and maybe you end up fighting Captain America or something. There are different ways they could go about it. I feel like, though, I'm getting too excited in that. I mean, my imagination's going bigger than the game will ever be. It will probably just be a set of missions, Bucky, and you clearing Bucky's name for something, and he's introduced. And that's if they choose to tie into the book. You know what I mean? That's if they choose to tie into the book that nobody read. Right? So yeah, it's just an interesting point of reference. The book does reference Bucky Barnes. It does reference Bucky as the character, and it is very clear that Steve Rogers has not seen him since the Second World War. So Steve Rogers fell on the ice, and he thinks Bucky is dead still, and he thought Bucky was dead right up to the point where he's captured by AIM. Like that's completely covered. So it will be interesting to see if this ever comes to pass, how Bucky is introduced into the game and what you end up doing in his missions, or if they completely ignore the book, and the book is not canon, even though it says it's an official prequel. But that's how these things go. It was just interesting to me, and I wanted to point out. Now, in terms of pipeline and in terms of development, and again, don't want to be a broken record. We do have other videos that reference these other characters. There are characters that seem as though they're further along. And I use that term relatively because any of this could be canceled. I mean, it really could. That's just the honest truth. But just in terms of development pipeline, how much is done, and that the actors have recorded dialogue where they are greeting Barnes, and all of this is this is in the game. It means that they got further with some characters than others. You know what I mean? Like, especially in comparison to our Scarlet Witch data mine that we had done previously. Bucky is much further along, which could lead to a pipeline of certain characters. And again, this might be kind of doomsday-ish, but it is what it is. But in terms of if the game drops support, right? If the game is no longer supported, who are we likely to get? Who are we likely, who could our last few characters be if the game is no longer supported? Winter Soldier would be one of them. He would absolutely be one of them. Now, in terms of leveraging, could Winter Soldier come before or after, She-Hulk, or before or after War Machine, or before or after Spider-Man? It's hard to say. You know what I mean? It's hard to say because all we have is the raw data. We don't know what's going on in terms of development. I can speculate a little bit in terms of informed speculation, and that is to say, it really does look like all hands are on deck for War for Wakanda and then pushing out cosmetics. It really does. It feels as though other development has kind of halted while they focus on that. And then it's a matter of seeing what comes of Spider-Man. Yeah, I mean, which again, I'm sure Spider-Man will happen. I'm sure Spider-Man will happen, but we are getting War for Wakanda first. I don't, and this is me being very frank and very honest. War Machine and Winter Soldier are both characters that I think could be coming very soon, just in terms of the data, right? I don't expect them to launch with War for Wakanda. I don't. I want to make that very clear. I would be incredibly shocked, and you can say, and this is fair, you can say, you're not giving the developers enough credit. I'm not giving the leadership enough credit, which I think would be a more, if you want to say something. Like the developers, I give the people who are working all the credit in the world. I don't give their leadership that much credit. I don't, and I don't see any reason to. But I think you're setting yourself up for disappointment if you think we're going to get Winter Soldier or War Machine with War for Wakanda. There is nothing that points to that. There is nothing here that leads me to believe they are that close. I think they could be close relatively in terms of the pipeline, but I mean, like, if you look at the pipeline, I think like Black Panther, Spider-Man is hopefully next for the PlayStation users, because Spider-Man's been promised, so hopefully he will come next. And then I think it's a flip of the coin whether it's War Machine or Winter Soldier next. And I know that neither of those sound incredibly interesting. Winter Soldier, I'm sure a lot of people, I saw this in the comments before, Winter Soldier is just going to be a different version of Black Widow, and War Machine is just going to be Iron Man. I get where you're coming from. It sounds like Echo Fighters. I respect that. I understand it. They're not the most interesting and diverse, especially when we're looking at, my previous data mine from August, and we have really interesting characters that there doesn't seem to be much progress on, which is always, in my opinion, it's an absolute shame because they're really interesting, diverse power sets and characters that we could have, but they've chosen to focus on what comes off to me as Echo Fighters. And if you don't know the term Echo Fighters, just real quick, Echo Fighters is... It's a Smash Brothers term. It's a fighting game term. It's where you have a character with a fighting setup, and then another character, and then just a reskin. You just copy the entire fight styles of one character, and then you just skin it. And I know that's not exactly what they did with Kate and Clint. I know it's not exactly what they're probably going to do with War Machine and Iron Man and Winter Soldier and Black Widow, but they're really close, is what I mean. So I know. So it sounds like it. It sounds so close, and I just want to play devil's advocate, and I always want to point that out. It is really close. They're not the most interesting in terms of just gameplay mechanics or visual representation. That's my opinion anyway. Again, to each their own. If you're really excited about Winter Soldier, hey, you know what? I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that's great. I just think this game really needs to diversify its lineup in terms of its survivability and its chance of survivability and what's left. And I do feel like in terms of budget, in terms of restrictions, in terms of development pipeline, I think it's very interesting that the furthest along characters are all similar to launch characters. War Machine, Winter Soldier, She-Hulk. All three very similar to launch characters. Could it be detrimental? Again, as an individual, I think it could be. In a larger context, it's not for me to say. It's for every individual to say. At the very least, the characters are free, so to speak. You have a barrier of entry, of course. You have, initial price buy-in, but you know what I'm saying. As it stands, as always, to my YouTube members, again, thank you so much for your support and for making this content possible. As I said at the top of the show, if you're interested in becoming a YouTube member, you can check out a link in that description below and support the channel for $2.99 a month and sponsor a video of your own. To everyone, thank you for watching and for being a part of the conversation. I really, genuinely do appreciate it. Please consider liking the video, showing that subscription button some love, and sharing this content with your friends across social media. It helps immensely with YouTube's analytics and algorithms. Above all else, and most importantly, stay safe, take care of others, and may the Force be with you. Hopefully, I don't get in trouble again. These cease and desists, I tell you what, man.